We will not fail. Assassin Christmas.
Hey, what's happening everyone? I am Sir James from Gamerfuzion.com, and today I'm here to provide you with my review for Assassin's Creed Syndicate. To quickly go over the game's storyline without going into too many details and or spoilers, it's broken down like this. This game takes place in London during the year 1868, which is the heart of the Industrial Revolution. The Templars have pretty much taken over London while in search for the Peace of Eden and to expand their organization. Thankfully enough, shortly after, both Jacob and Evie Fry enter the area and they seek the same thing, which is to free London from the corruption and to find the pieces of Eden, in which both Jacob and Evie Fry go their separate ways, but at the end come into one final showdown to free London. Now, going over the graphics, visually this game is beautiful to look at. Every time there's a new Assassin's Creed game comes out, I always get excited to the new location, because I know ahead of time that they always pay attention to detail when they implement this into their game. And overall, London is fantastic. Every square inch that you visit in this location, whether it be the dark alleyways or the busy streets, everything is gorgeous. You see carriages going around, you seeing boats with shipments, going over the rooftops using rope launcher. Just everything about this was just fantastic to look at. I did notice though that during the beginning phases of the game, that during like the shading options, it seemed to have a lot of noise aspect, which was a bit bothersome, but either that was patched or it's just something that I got used to, because I didn't really recall seeing that towards the in-game content. But overall, the visualization is fantastic. One of the things I do highly recommend if you guys pick up this game is to explore everything, or better yet, hop onto a train and just take one exploration all the way around London, because overall the visual aspect of the game is beautiful to look at. Now next up, I want to go ahead and talk about the gameplay, because a lot of people had some concerns, especially during the combat phases, saying that it looked clunky based on the videos that they seen 4 or 5 months ago. Of course it looks clunky back then because you're watching a pre-alpha build. Here we have the final build, and of course the game is running butter smooth most of the time. I did notice at least some minor frame rate drops here and there, but it was nothing that was going to break my overall experience of the game. It was just a bit noticeable difference here and there, or a couple little minor glitches, but overall the gameplay is smooth. There's actually a lot of things to do. First thing I want to talk about is the weapons. A lot of people are concerned, is there really only 3 different weapon types? Fortunately, yes, there is 3 weapon types. You have a dagger, I don't recall what the dagger is called. You also have the cane sword, and you have brass knuckles. Each of those 3 different weapons, you have different level ratings for them, in which you can unlock, craft, or be awarded during mission experiences. And of course there's different styles with them, and each one is a bit different on their own. For example, the dagger has a much more lethal capability, while the cane sword is not as lethal as the dagger, but you're able to stagger enemies more often. And of course with the brass knuckles, you're not going to be granted in terms of ranged type attacks, but if you want to be up close and personal or enter fight clubs, then that's pretty much the way to go. And what's nice about the combat is that if you happen to be surrounded by enemies and you put them in the near death state, you actually do a really awesome takedown where you just have a multi-kill section. It's basically watching an action movie take place, and each time you do that, it just gets better and better as you go along, or the more enemies you take down at once as you build up your meter. But overall the combat was really smooth and really enjoyable. Now, one of the things that people also had some concern about was the game activities, because it didn't seem like there's going to be a lot of activities compared to Assassin's Creed Unity, for example. But here in this game, you actually have a lot of different things to do. For example, starting with territories, it's actually broken down into different segments and different level ratings depending on where you are at the current time. And basically you're able to take on missions such as Templar Hunt, where you either have to kill a certain target, and of course you could do like little side objectives where you kill them a certain way. You have other ones where basically the police is offering your aid, and basically they're like, hey, bring this target back alive, we will give you a great reward. So you infiltrate the area and you basically take them into the station. You have different ways about that. You have child liberations where you go free the children from those harsh work conditions. And of course, after you acquire everything, you have the big gang war that takes place. Now what's nice about this one is that you kind of have 2 different options here. Now, if you happen to kill the gang leader before the main gang war, basically what would happen is that during that gang war, they will be leaderless, and thus you have an easy victory. But where's the fun in that? However, if you let the target get away, you get to go into one gang war where you have your gang, you have the Templars gang, basically into one battle, and of course you go on a final showdown with the leader to take control of that territory. And basically you have many different sections to do this and a vast majority of different level areas. So of course it starts off easy, but it becomes a lot more challenging, at which you're going to need to upgrade your rooks. Speaking of upgrades, there's actually quite a few upgrades to go for besides the crafting options. Both Evie and Jacob Frey actually have their own skill tree. They're exactly the same, however, during the end portions of that skill tree, each character has their own personal skill. For example, Jacob is the more brawler-based class, and he actually has a lot of perks where he's able to bring down targets into a near-death experience a lot quicker than Evie. However, Evie is the more stealth-focused character, so if you have anything that requires stealth, Evie will be the main character to go to, and she actually has a unique ability called Chameleon, where she pretty much blends in with their entire environment, thus invisible to the world until basically a Templar gets close to enough to her, or if you happen to move around, but all kinds of cool stuff. And speaking of the two different characters, some people wondering how easy it is to switch between the two characters, and you could actually switch between Jacob and Evie Frey on the go. Do keep in mind though that during the main campaign missions, each one is designed for each of the different characters, because both Jacob and Evie Frey are going on the same path, but they're doing things differently. However, during the main events, during side activities, you could switch between the two characters on the fly as long as you're not engaging in a certain target, and of course as long as you're anonymous. But besides that, there's even train robberies, you could even heist carriages, all kinds of different things, and of course upgrade your gang, which is the rooks. But overall, just a lot of stuff to do. It's really hard to describe everything because there's so many things to do. You're going to find yourself endless amount of hours of enjoyment as you play, level up your characters, level up your gang as you progress through the main storyline, and just completing all side activities, plus some of the other main characters in which you get to visit along the way. But overall, the gameplay was really enjoyable and very engaging. Now, going over the sound aspect for the game, starting with the main soundtrack. The soundtrack for the game was really enjoyable to listen to. Oftentimes you had some really nice music that just kicked in as you're just roaming the streets. Another cool aspect is as you're roaming the streets, you may stumble upon some crowds that are actually singing in the distance, and just going up to them, listening to and watch as the crowd builds up around you was also really enjoyable. Not only that, the voice acting was fantastic. I really liked both Jacob and Evie. I actually like Jacob a little bit more because he seems to be a little bit more relatable to me and my current situation, since I do have a sister as well. But overall, the voice acting was really good and the music was fantastic to listen to. Now, next up is the game's lifespan, and overall this game has a really good lifespan because there's so many things to do besides all the different side activities and collectibles. Is that during your main missions, there's going to be some missions where you actually have 3 different ways to take out your target, from unique kills, basic, or just as a supportive role. And of course, not only that, as you progress in the main storyline, you're going to find that you may not be able to do a certain activity, or you're going to be too weak and you're going to have to level up and grind things out until you acquire enough skills or better gear to do that set mission. But overall, just a lot of different activities to do. Collectibles are going to keep you busy for a long time. You're able to replay missions, so if you like to go for the 100% completion for all sequences and memories, then that's something that you're going to find really adaptive and something that's going to make you play it more and more as you progress along. And of course, definitely upgrading your gang, because there's nothing satisfying by calling in your gang and just taking over everything. As for the innovation, was there anything new here? Was this something that we already seen before? There's definitely some innovation for Assassin's Creed Syndicate. For example, one of the things I really liked was the fact that we had this really cool unique tool called the rope launcher, which is definitely useful enough to get us out of sticky situations, of course travel across London. Not only that, the fact that we had the option to switch between 2 characters on the fly during many of the side activities was a nice change of pace, and the fact that we have this nice skill tree for both, even though they're identical in skills but having their own unique perks at the very end, was definitely a nice change of pace, where we have one more focused on stealth while the other is more focused on being a brawler. And of course, having your own personal gate, upgrading that, kind of giving it an RPG system type of thing. I thought that was a really nice change for the actual game itself. Not only that, one of the things I did like is the fact that I felt like we kind of went back to the original days of Assassin's Creed games. How before it was only meant to be focused during the single player aspect, where we didn't have to worry about online multiplayer or cooperative segments. And by Assassin's Creed Syndicate doing that, we basically got rid of a lot of the different issues which happens on most of the launches for the Assassin's Creed games, whether it be several bugs, online issues, whatever the case may be. Here, I didn't really have much of any issues. There was a couple minor bugs here and there which have been patched already, just a couple which will get patched soon enough. The only real complaint I had about my overall experience was the final boss. The final boss was just a terrible way of doing it. It wasn't as exciting, except for the cinematic moments where you have both Jacob and Evie, but other than that, just the final boss was the only letdown I had with the game. Overall, you have a ton of different things to do, unique ways to take on missions, a lot of things overall, heist, all that fun stuff. But in the end, I'm going to give Assassin's Creed Syndicate a 9 out of 10. If you guys want to check out my full walkthrough, you guys can check the link in the description down below. Until then, I am Sir James from Gamerfuzion.com, where we empower your gaming.